Laird Hamilton.
Laird Hamilton.
Laird Hamilton.
Big wave surfing legend Laird Hamilton.
Laird Hamilton.
It's a famous surfer, Laird Hamilton.
August 17th, 2000, Teahupoo, Tahiti. Just months earlier, a surfer had died at this exact reef. The locals called it the end of the road. And on this morning, Laird Hamilton paddled out into a wave that no human being had ever seen before.
August 17th, 2000, Teahupoo, Tahiti.
The swell was mean and heavy. The waves were giant.
But a legend and his board would change surfing forever. This is the heaviest wave ever ridden.
The biggest tube that I ever surfed used to be in Hawaii, and as of right now it looks like it's Tahiti. So sometimes it's hard to measure a wave by the size more than the magnitude. I think the tubes that I've had here in Tahiti were definitely the most dramatic to memory at this point.
The photographer on the boat started shaking. The filmmaker said he almost stopped shooting because he was so afraid of what he was about to witness. The wave was not just big, it was thick, like a 10-story building made of ocean. And somehow, this man rode it. That moment changed surfing forever. But what most people do not know is the story of how Laird Hamilton got to that wave. The broken childhood, the abusive home, the years of being laughed at by the surf world, and then the obsession that turned him into something beyond human. This is how Laird Hamilton lives, and it is beyond belief. Laird John Zerfus was born on March 2, 1964, in San Francisco. His mother Joanne chose an experimental saltwater birth at UCSF Medical Center. He came into the world in water. It was not an accident. This kid was built for the ocean from his very first breath. But his early life was far from paradise. His biological father, a Greek immigrant named L.G. Zerfus, walked out before Laird could even walk. His mother was a teenager. They had nothing. Joanne moved baby Laird to Hawaii, working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week just to keep them alive. And then came one of the most extraordinary moments in surfing history. Nobody photographed it. It was not in any magazine. Laird was 3 years old, playing on a beach on Kauai's North Shore, when a young surfer walked by. The little boy walked straight up to him and said 4 words. 4 words that changed everything. "I want you to be my daddy." He took the stranger home to meet his mother. That stranger was Bill Hamilton, one of the most naturally gifted surfers of the entire 1960s era. A man Surfer magazine would one day call surfing's Jesus of cool. Bill married Joanne, adopted Laird, and moved the family to a tin-roofed house on Kauai with no hot water, screen windows instead of glass, and a cold outdoor shower. Bill shaped surfboards to make money. Laird grew up barefoot and free. Bill taught Laird to surf at age 3. By 7, video footage exists of this little kid jumping off a 60-foot cliff into deep water. By 11, his mother took him on a road trip that most adults never take in a lifetime. Paris to Bombay, through the Khyber Pass, Istanbul, Iran, Iraq, along the old Silk Trail. A boy from Kauai seeing the entire world. But the home life was hard. The age gap between Laird and his stepfather was 16 years. The relationship turned physical. Laird has spoken openly about it. A lot of the lessons you learn are of what not to be, what not to do. Growing up blonde and Caucasian in a Hawaiian neighborhood also made him a target. He was bullied relentlessly from kindergarten through high school. He learned to fight, and he learned that the ocean was the one place where nothing could touch him. He dropped out of school at 16. At 17, an Italian magazine photographer discovered him on a Kauai beach. By 19, he was modeling across Europe, shooting with Brooke Shields for Life magazine. In 1996, People magazine named him one of the 50 most beautiful people in the world. But fame meant nothing to Laird. He had one obsession: waves. By the late 1980s, Laird Hamilton had become something the surfing world did not have a name for yet. He was 6 feet 3 inches tall and 215 pounds of raw muscle, too big and too powerful for the tiny shortboards the pros were riding. And he was obsessed with a question that kept him awake at night. What if the biggest waves on Earth could actually be ridden? Waves over 25 feet had been considered impossible. The problem was simple and brutal. Human paddle power could not match the speed of a wave that large. You would paddle hard, The wave would accelerate beneath you, and it would swallow you. Every single time. Laird had two partners who were chasing the same dream. Burton Buzzy Kerbox, a former top 10 competitive surfer and Ralph Lauren model who had won the World Cup at Sunset Beach in 1978. And Derek Dorner, a 20-year North Shore lifeguard who had worked alongside Eddie Aikau himself. In the winter of 1992, the three men did something that should not have worked. Kerbox had an inflatable Zodiac boat with a 40-horsepower outboard motor. They attached a water ski rope and towed each other into 15 and 20-foot waves at a spot called Backyards on Oahu's North Shore. They called themselves the Strapped Crew, after the foot straps Laird had added to the boards, borrowed from his snowboarding experience. It worked! Immediately! They moved to Maui. They swapped the dangerous Zodiac for a personal watercraft, a Kawasaki jet ski. Shaper Dick Brewer built them a small 6.5-foot board out of balsa. Laird named it Betsy, and they pointed Betsy at the biggest wave break on Maui, a massive reef break known to locals as Peahi, and to the world as Jaws. The surf establishment went crazy. Purists called it cheating. They said using a jet ski was a blasphemy against surfing itself. Laird did not care. He was already surfing 35-foot waves in a style that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen. And he was just getting started. By the mid-1990s, Laird had also helped introduce stand-up paddleboarding to the modern world, kitesurfing on the Maui coast with a French sailor named Manu Bertin, and early hydrofoil surfing using underwater wings built from air chair parts. Every water sport he touched, he either invented or reinvented. The man could not stop. In 1999, he windsurfed 50 miles across the open ocean between Oahu and Kauai in under 6 hours, just to prove he could. He even took his talents to Hollywood, performing jaw-dropping water stunts for James Bond in Die Another Day and the 2015 Point Break remake. In November 1995, a 6'3" professional volleyball player named Gabrielle Reese flew to Maui to interview Laird for a TV show called The Extremists. Laird was not impressed. I had no idea who Gabby was. Who is this? Another pretty bimbo that is going to ask me dumb questions? But the moment she started talking, everything changed.
It was love after first communication.
Yeah, he was. It's not like Laird was that nice to me in the beginning, and
come on, a television host, pretty attractive girl. I was like,
and he didn't know I
Can't
did
be
sports.
smart,
That was the
you
other
know?
thing. He's like, oh, it's a gun for hire, some blonde girl. And then after the interview, he was much nicer, and I think we lived together 8 days later.
Gabby later described it this way: I basically got hit by a lightning bolt. They moved in together 8 days after meeting. On November 30th, 1997, they married in Hawaii. Together they have 2 daughters, Reese Viola and Brody Joe. Laird also has a daughter named Isabella from his first marriage to Brazilian bodyboarder Maria Souza, one of the first women ever to surf Jaws. But the marriage nearly collapsed. By Christmas 2000, just 4 months after the biggest wave of his life, Gabby filed for divorce. The drinking, the moods, the years of living alongside someone who deliberately risked death for fun. She called him the weatherman, because his emotions could change from sunny to a full storm in minutes. They separated. She moved on. Then Laird came to collect his snowboard. He walked into the house and something shifted. Gabby saw what she was about to lose. She asked him to stay. He stayed. And that was the last time they almost lost each other. Laird stopped drinking entirely. We have only gotten divorced 1.5 times, Gabby has joked ever since. On fatherhood, Laird has said something that stops people in their tracks. I really did not know what being scared was until I had kids. If they are hurt, you cannot take away their pain, and that makes you feel vulnerable. The man who has surfed 50-foot waves admits that his daughters are the only thing that truly terrifies him. Now we come to the moment that changed everything. August 17th, 2000, Teahupoo, Tahiti. Just months earlier, a Tahitian surfer named Brice Terea had been killed at this reef. Thrown over the falls, he landed headfirst on the coral in water less than 2 feet deep. He spent 2 days in a coma. He did not survive. Laird knew this. Everyone knew this. And they paddled out anyway. Teahupoo is not like other waves. It is not tall. It is thick. The reef is sometimes only 20 inches below the surface. When a wave hits that reef, the water does not just break, it mutates. The lip can be 20 feet thick. A wipeout means being driven headfirst into razor-sharp live coral. The day started rough. Laird called off his first tow partner at the last second on a dangerous wave. Bad tide. The water was doing something wrong. They waited. Around 11:30 in the morning, Laird switched to Derek Dorner on the jet ski. And then the sky was completely blacked out by a wall of water. A line of water, twice the size of anything they had seen that day, began to rise from the ocean. Dorner fired the engine. He towed Laird 50 yards farther up the reef than normal. Laird dropped the rope, and in that split second he realized something terrifying. The wave was trying to suck him up the face and throw him over the falls. Nobody had ever been in this situation. Nobody knew what to do. And in a fraction of a second, Laird invented something. It was instinct. It was genius. It was survival. Photographer Tim McKenna was on a boat nearby. He wrote afterward, "The whole ocean twisted and was thrown over the reef. The entire horizon disappeared." Filmmaker Jack McCoy was shooting from the back of a separate jet ski. He said he was almost hemorrhaging at what he was seeing. He thought Laird was dead. Then the foam exploded outward, and Laird appeared. He had made it. He paddled to a boat, sat down, put his head in his hands, and cried. Derek Dorner said afterward, "I towed him onto that wave, and it was to the point where I almost said, 'Do not let go of the rope.' But when I looked back, he was gone." Tim McKenna's photograph ran as a fold-out cover on Surfer magazine in February 2001, with 3 words printed across the bottom. Oh my God. The world would come to know this ride as the Millennium Wave. Surf journalist Sam George later called it the most amazing, single most significant ride in surfing history. It completely restructured our entire perception of what was possible. Today, Laird Hamilton is 62 years old, 6 feet 3, 215 pounds, under 10% body fat, and he trains 3 to 6 hours every single day. His Malibu home sits on a ridge at Latigo Canyon Road, purchased in 1997 for $1.6 million. The house spans over 8,300 square feet, with 6 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms. But the real centerpiece is the pool. 12 feet deep at the far end, one of the largest private pools in Southern California, built for one specific purpose: underwater training that the rest of the world is only now beginning to understand. Laird wakes up at 5 a.m., before sunrise, every morning. He drinks 2 large glasses of water with lemon juice and sea minerals. Then he makes his coffee, not regular coffee. 3 to 4 shots of dark espresso blended with coconut milk, turmeric, ghee, raw butter, red palm oil, and a performance mushroom blend. It sounds strange. His body at 62 is the advertisement for why it works. Then he trains in the pool. And this is where things get extreme. He takes dumbbells, not small ones, 40 and 60-pound dumbbells, and he carries them underwater, swimming from one end to the other without breathing. He performs explosive jumps off the deep-end floor with heavy weights, propelling himself to the surface for one breath, then sinking back down. He does lunges in the deep end holding a 20-pound dumbbell in each hand. The water resists every movement. The breath holding forces his cardiovascular system to adapt in ways that no gym machine can replicate. Former Navy SEALs train in that pool. So do NFL running backs, NBA players, and Hollywood actors. Christian McCaffrey calls it his second home, but Laird just calls it Tuesday. After the pool, he alternates between a 220-degree sauna and a 30-degree ice bath. Hot, cold, repeatedly. He calls this the crown jewel of mental conditioning, because learning to stay calm when your body is screaming at you to panic is the skill that saved his life at Teahupoo. Today, Laird and Gabby split their time between Malibu and their home on Kauai's North Shore in Princeville, overlooking Hanalei Valley. The Kauai property has a direct boat ramp to the river and out to the ocean, letting Laird tow out on a jet ski to waves any morning he chooses. During the catastrophic Kauai floods of April 2018, Laird used that same ramp to conduct 75 rescues over 6 days. Retired legend, local hero, still showing up. Beyond the water, Laird co-founded Laird Superfood in 2015. The company went public on the New York Stock Exchange in 2020, raising over $64 million. The company sells the same plant-based coffee creamers he has been making for himself in his kitchen for years. Revenue grew to $43 million in 2024, a 26% jump from the year before. He has also built XPT, his extreme performance training system, into a global operation with 250 certified trainers worldwide. He has written 3 books, 2 of which became New York Times bestsellers. Nobody handed Laird Hamilton anything. He was born to a teenager who had nothing. He was abandoned by his father before his first birthday. He rose from a tin-roofed shack with 0 luxuries. He was abused. He was bullied. He was told his body was too big, and his approach was too radical, and his waves were too large for what the surf world called competition. He popularized stand-up paddleboarding. He pioneered hydrofoil surfing. He stayed married through the hardest kind of storms. And on one Thursday morning in August 2000, on a reef where a man had died the months before, he rode a wave that surfing still talks about 25 years later. When asked about his legacy, Laird keeps the answer simple. My greatest success is that I am still right here now. I have beautiful children. I have a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful life. I am just trying to get the maximum out of my trip here on the planet. In his early 60s, he surfs almost every day. He still paddles into waves that most men would not swim near. And when he talks about fear, he does not talk about managing it or controlling it. He says, "I know that if I scare myself once a day, I am a better person." The man who was born in saltwater is still, 6 decades later, more alive in the ocean than anyone else on Earth. And that is how Laird Hamilton lives, beyond belief.